few months ago, Netflix had released its analytics and how it had lost over 2 lakh subscribers and failed to create massive revenues. Even the head of the company admitted to having a failed model in India, making most of us not that surprised. When you take a deep dive in trying to understand most of Netflix's acquisitions versus what is being incorporated by Hotstar or Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus Hotstar having the majority of subscribers in India is largely due to the ownership of streaming sports, especially cricket and football, that retains a huge number of subscribers. And what Amazon Prime Video has successfully done is really penetrate the market by acquiring films from across languages in India. This not only has catapulted their subscriber base 3 times that of Netflix in India, but has created a huge following specific to states as they look forward to their films releasing on the platform. While Netflix is producing English-speaking content based on a Hindi demographic, there is a huge gap between what the masses are interested in watching versus what is being produced. So what do I think about Zoya Akhtar and her venture in adapting Archies comics in India with a cast of mostly star kids and a few young and talented outsiders, one of which includes a person called Dot? I was discussing with an industry friend of mine. I've become a hotshot now, talking to industry friends and all. And we were trying to understand who really is watching Zoya Akhtar's previous produced venture with Netflix titled Eternally Confused and Eager for Love. First of all, most Indian subscribers will fail to even search for the title of that show, but I wondered who is the show even catered to? Upper middle class and the privileged folk who live in towns and connect with a life where the real struggle is the incompatibility on dates on a regular basis? First world problems is never the issue with the content of shows, but I wonder from a business standpoint, how does it make sense to pitch and market the show in India while most people almost feel alien to the same? The show being sporadically funny and entertaining is one thing, but when there is a lack of a universal emotional quotient, something that you can always equate to Zoya Akhtar's filmography, the gap between the masses and what is being showcased widens, and you slowly see a disconnection with the creators and the audience. I think sadly when it comes to shows in India, there is absolutely no middle ground in terms of the most celebrated shows that students across the board connect with, including those especially produced by TVF. You look at shows like Flames, Kota Factory, and even something as carefree as College Romance. There is a deep connection to the content, the emotional arc of the main characters, and the dialect in which they interact with one another. I'm not saying that every school-based show needs to be about slumming it out while engineering preparations are in full swing, but the leap taken between shows like Kota Factory to a Student of the Year is absolutely hilarious. When I think of even affluence in schools or colleges done right, something still more relatable is the treatment, say, of Wake Up Sid or a movie like Rockford, rather than whatever was the universe created in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai all the way up to Student of the Year 2. That seems like an alien world in its entirety. I'll be honest though, I've grown up watching English high school dramas all my life. While a lot of people were connecting to like Hindi content on TV, I was also watching like Star World and what was coming on Z Cafe. So the current obsession might be Euphoria, but I've grown up watching shows like The OC or even One Tree Hill. Teenage angst in these dramas and emotional arcs were so beautifully etched out, for the most part, that you didn't even notice the sheer opulence and privilege that existed. The dismissal that most Indian viewers love to label Zoya Akhtar's film as rich people problems never click in these shows because the narrative is so engrossing, which I also equate to most of Zoya's films. And this is where the outrage, dilemma, and hopefulness followed by slight skepticism gets channelized with a show like Archies in India. These comics have been a huge part of our childhood, which was one of the most popular reads for America, especially after World War II. What happened during those formative years of the comics was also that it had amassed such a huge fan base, many times also surpassing the sales of comic books of some of your favorite superheroes. But because the creators were so cautious of the creative journey of its characters, which almost remained the same throughout many decades, the lack of innovation almost caught up to them in the late 90s and mid 2000s, where the sales really plummeted. New versions and adaptations were formed, and while some completely tanked, others did surprisingly well. The Archie show or the adventures of Archie were anomalies in terms of shows that I was obsessed with, but as an adult, Riverdale excited me and then transitioned to such absurdity that it became an internet meme at this point. I remember tuning in for the first season of the show and it came across as a pretty generic adaptation of the comics with an attempt to create an eerie atmosphere of murders and mystery. But as the seasons have gone by, the absurdity of the murders and the creatures that come and go in this universe makes me hysterically laugh rather than shudder with fear. The show has become such a meme that there are even compilations of the cast being fed up of the storyline and couldn't care less about dissing it during their promotional interviews. It's great that Zoya hasn't taken any inspiration from the same and is presenting a film rather than a long-form series with its Indian adaptation. I fear, however, that there is a huge disconnect with the way the characters look, especially from an Indian landscape perspective. There is an expectation of how we looked and interacted with one another when we were in school, but the cast look almost seemed like Abercrombie and Fitch models met Thomas Shelby and got a makeover. Presumably set in OT during the 1900s, this should be an adaptation in a make-believe world in my opinion, rather than reflective of reality, because I think otherwise there will be too many people dismissing it as not convincing enough. Though the aesthetic looks beautiful, I think what Zoya might be going for is what they successfully did with a show like Sex Education, where the characters and their looks are basically inspired by the 80s, like most of John Hughes' teen movies. If you see movies like 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the costume is actually inspired from that era. So the visual grammar is probably reflective of the same of how the rich and affluent probably dressed in a colder climate in India. While I'm trying to draw parallels and trying to understand what the show might be going for, I still think there is a huge disconnect with what the masses resonate with and versus what is being produced by Netflix. I like it how the internet is already speculating on what the performances will be like, already judging which star kid can or cannot act, but the show hasn't even come out. And it's the typical rage that the audience has whenever they see a star kid. And you know what's even funnier? Guess what's trending today on Twitter? Is anyone really surprised? I sometimes want to shout for the people at the back that most of the mass heroes that they follow and celebrate are also products of nepotism, but I can't break that illusion that it only exists in Bollywood, right? Irrespective, my faith regarding the show only rests on Zoya Akhtar and her ability as a director, because in my eyes, she still hasn't made a bad movie in her career. My only fear is that the gap between what is being produced on Netflix and versus what the masses connect with, again, I'm seeing this probably for the fourth time in this entire script, is widening as the months pass by. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you generally feel about this announcement and the show's aesthetic. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.